Was Grace Kelly a prisoner or fairy tale princess? The true story of Grace Kelly's death and why rumours surrounding it have been so persistent. She was a screen goddess who found her very own Prince Charming, but was Grace Kelly a fairy tale princess or prisoner in a gilded cage? Despite evidence to the contrary, false narratives have proved hard to shake. Hollywood has told many fairy tales in its time, and the Dream Factory has no shortage of make-believe, happy endings. Yet for Grace Kelly, celebrated beauty and Oscar-winning star, truth proved more than a match for fiction. Grace is among an exclusive pantheon of stars whose name can transport us back to the golden age of cinema. She was and remains the embodiment of timeless beauty, elegance and tragedy. Once upon a time, it appeared as though she had finally found her own happily ever after. Grace's story isn't one of rags to riches, as her beginnings were far from humble. Her father was an Olympic athlete turned politician who numbered the President of the USA among his confidants, and her mother was an athletics coach who enjoyed a successful sideline as a model. The young Grace was given an exclusive and expensive education, yet from childhood she nursed her dreams of a life on stage. The archetypal cool blonde, gossip columnists and biographers hinted that beneath Grace's elegant beauty there beat a wild heart. Her personal life was seemingly full of drama and romance, with a long list of lovers that included not only Cooper, Crosby and Gable, but Frank Sinatra, Ray Milland and David Niven too. Some of the men were single, many were married, and none of them were permanent. That honour awaited someone far more regal. Prince Rainier III was handsome, rich, and wildly ambitious for the future of Monaco, the little-known country he ruled. He was a man with a passion for actresses, and had enjoyed a long and fiery relationship with French star Gisèle Pascal, but their romance petered out as she pursued her burgeoning career. He knew that a high-profile marriage would do wonders for the status of Monaco, and how much more high-profile could one get than the reigning Queen of Hollywood? Grace and Prince Rainier met at the Cannes Film Festival in 1955, awkwardly sharing a cup of tea in front of the world's photographers. It wasn't love at first sight, nor one of the passionate liaisons seemingly so beloved of Grace, but when the couple met again during the prince's visit to the United States later that year, romance was in the air. From the start it was clear that this was a serious business, and the courtship was formal, official, and perhaps just a little stilted. When Grace accepted Rainier's proposal, the world thrilled to what seemed like a real-life fairy tale, the princess having very definitely found her Prince Charming. Grace paid a high price, giving up her acting career for the life of a society bride. She believed that Rainier would relent in time and let her return to work, but his mind was made up. There was no way the Princess of Monaco would be locking lips with Cary Grant again on screens across the world. For her adoring public, though, a career seemed like a small price to pay to become a real princess, mixing in the highest circles and living in glittering palaces, enjoying the very best of everything. She always looked so content, that it was unthinkable that life behind the scenes was anything but perfect. But was there a darkness in the heart of Monaco? In the years since Grace's death, much has been written about her unhappy existence within the opulent palaces that became her home. Although sources are keen to remain anonymous, and the royal Grimaldi family greet any hint of bad press with disdain, rumours of infidelity, drinking, and Grace's lonely existence persist. Rainier, it would seem, had followed the age-old royal path of finding a wife who would provide him with a perfect public consort and secure the future of his dynasty. Under the terms of a 1918 treaty, if Rainier did not marry and produce an heir, then Monaco would revert back to France. Combined with the prestige of marriage to such a famous woman, this has long been rumoured to be the reason Rainier chose Grace. Behind closed doors, it has been claimed that the prince took mistresses and spent little time with his wife, preferring instead the company of his lovers and driving her back into the arms of some of those famous co-stars. On this point, critics of the marriage disagree. Some claim that Grace remained faithful despite her husband's neglect, suffering in silence. Others that she gave as good as she got. For their part, Rainier and Grace's children remember their father as stricter than their mother, yet never less than loving. They dismiss any allegations that he and Grace were unhappy as wishful thinking, the need to create gossip and melodrama where none exist. Yet if things were so unhappy and the marriage was more business agreement than romantic love match, what was in it for Grace, and why would she have stayed? When Grace met Rainier, she seemingly had it all: intelligence, talent, beauty, money, and the respect and recognition of her peers. Her career was at its peak, and it seemed as though Hollywood was hers to command. Some have argued that in taking lovers who were often a decade or more her senior, Grace was seeking to replace the father who so disapproved of her choice of career. With his damning words that acting was barely above the level of prostitution, his rejection must have cut Grace deep. And perhaps it stayed with her, leading her to seek out the approval and love of father figures. Marriage to Rainier would have been the ultimate expression of this. Although only 6 years older than her, he offered unshakable security and protection, though such a cosseted life soon turned into isolation. Although she could speak French, Grace struggled at times in this new world, away from friends and family and the life she had known. Recent biographies have claimed that the unhappy woman slipped into depression. There are unsubstantiated claims that the bride-to-be was not romanced and courted, but subjected to a clinical fertility test to ensure she could fulfill the duty her prince demanded of her. In her later years, sources close to the princess whispered that Grace had even consulted a divorce lawyer in her efforts to escape the loveless marriage. It was only then that she discovered that her marriage contract contained a clause that meant should she divorce Rainier, she would never be allowed to see her children again. Grace was trapped, and to the end of her days she would never escape. As the years passed, Grace made occasional forays into performance once more, giving poetry readings that perhaps allowed her something of an outlet for her frustrated talents. She was certainly devoted to her charitable work, and while Grace and Rainier were not the most passionate pair, when their marriage reached its quarter century in 1981, they had learned how to live together. Grace had settled into her gilded cage, juggling the demands of motherhood and public life as Hollywood moved on without her. Yet the fairy tale princess was as adored as ever, whether her leading role was on the cinema screen or the continental royal stage.